We are here today for another one of our community conversations. And you can see today's topic is for Designcenter Solid Edge Configurator. We are talking about streamlining custom product design using Designcenter Solid Edge Configurator. My name is Taryn Blake. I am the Community Engagement Program Manager for our Siemens PLM community. And we are starting a session with one of our folks from Siemens today. So let me stop rambling and go through our house rules so we can get started. For today, as I mentioned, is one of our own here at Siemens. So Ali is an application engineer for Siemens Digital Industries Software. He specializes in developing and delivering high-quality technical enablement and marketing content for Designcenter and Designcenter Solid Edge. So he'll be doing that for us here today. But he plays a role in our product launches, global technical training all over the world, and providing pre-sale support. So he helps our partners and customers fully leverage the capabilities of Designcenter, and he's going to do that for us today as he goes through this demo and gives some tips for enablement. That is all for my introduction. We are live. Ali, feel free to take the screen.
Thank you for the intro. Let me go ahead and share my screen and get us started. All right. So before I get us started, I actually saw our product manager on the product, Shushan, in the call as well. So this is a great chance for all of you to ask your questions in the chat. Me and Shushan will do our best to answer the questions. If there is any feedback, there is any request as far as where you want the product to go as well, this is your chance since we have our product manager in the call. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. Maybe I put Shushan a little bit on the spot there, but I think this is a great opportunity for all of you to ask your questions and feedbacks and so on. With that being said, so let's get us started with our session on streamlining custom product design with the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator. So as far as the agenda, to just set the expectations for this session, first, we'll look at industry trends and why demands for configured products in general are increasing all over the place. Next, we'll distinguish between configure to order and engineer to order processes, place them on a complexity spectrum. Then we'll introduce the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator. We'll go over the user interface and the workflows. We'll show you some examples. And we'll close it with a summary, some licensing context, and finally, we'll have a Q&A if you have time at the end. But of course, you have the chat with our product manager also on the call, so go ahead and ask any questions you have in the chat. So why configure products and processes are increasing? What are the trends and challenges around those in the industry? So product configuration in general is really becoming a larger share of manufacturers' work in all industries, I would say. But of course, in some industries, it's more than the other. Customers increasingly expect product tailored to their requirements without accepting long lead times or premium costs. We'll see this in our everyday to-day life. For example, when you go and pick out a phone, you can customize so many different things. But again, you don't want your cost to go up tremendously, right, with those customizations. The Tech Clarity research here that I have on the slide also indicates that manufacturers have already seen product configuration increase in the past 5 years and expect that trend to continue for the next 5, 10, 20 years, and so on. So again, I just want to emphasize here, customization is no longer an occasional exception these days. It is becoming a repeatable business process, and we need a scalable methods, we need a scalable data and automation. Again, some examples are cars now, right? You have a variety of options to pick from. When you go buy a car, you no longer buy the car as is. You can customize it to your needs. So several forces are increasing configuration complexity as once. Products contain more interconnected choices and related features. I've said this before, customers want variety, but manufacturers really cannot allow every variation to add proportional cost. Otherwise, customers are not willing to pay that extra price for it. Product definition also spans multiple functions, probably in all of your companies, right? We have sales, we have product management, we have engineering and manufacturing, and many more departments. So in reality, the knowledge must be shared consistently between all these departments. Finally, teams increasingly need visualization and analysis throughout the lifecycle, not only after the design is complete. For example, marketing wants some rendering of the products or so on. Sales want to be able to do quotes without the final product and so on. So the common thread here is the manual interpretation is really becoming harder as choices and dependencies grow. So this creates both an opportunity to differentiate for a lot of your companies, and also it provides a significant engineering burden. So customization, as we all know, create a lot of value, especially for our customers, but engineering effort can consume that value. So manufacturers really differentiate through higher levels of customization, a better fit to customer needs, and a stronger product reliability and support. However, with all those being said, configured products often require order-specific bill of materials, CAD models, drawings, and so many other engineering-related things. So again, the research on the right we have on the slide reinforces that engineering and manufacturing work remains substantial across many respondents. So the organizations, the companies really want the revenue and differentiation of the customization, but they also don't want the delays, the cost, and the risk of repeatedly engineering each order from scratch. And we can see this tension really in the next slide, which is the RFP process. So in the RFP process, which is the request for proposal in the bidding process, engineering can really become the constraint on sales responsiveness. So in this scenario, a customer, for example, submits an RFP, which is a request for proposal. Before sales can return a credible bid to the customer, a credible quote, engineering may need to interpret some requirements. They need to maybe create a design from scratch or modify an existing design. They estimate the cost, establish visibility and timing. When that work is manual, the response waits in an engineering queue. So as a salesperson, you're at the mercy of your engineers in this case. And the longer proposal lead times become, we will end up with greater exposure to cost estimation errors, margin erosion, and a lower chance of winning that bid if it's a time-sensitive opportunity. And this same bottleneck also continues throughout the order process. So again, here the trigger on this slide, as we see this process, is an order rather than a request for proposal, but the pattern remains the same. So when customer orders something, and if it's a specific customized order, again, we need to go back to our engineering department, translate the requirements into an order-specific product before delivery can proceed. If the process depends, again, on repeated manual work, lead times increase and cost overruns can really destroy our profit margins. And one important thing here as well, in these type of scenarios, and our engineers are usually occupied with that repetitive order work, and they end up with less capacity for new product introduction and also less capacity for higher value innovation, which, as we all know, is very important these days in the world of engineering. So in short, product configuration softwares really can help you move those repeatable decisions out of the bottleneck. So those configuration softwares, again, there are many of those these days, one of which being the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator, improve both commercial speed and engineering execution. So for sales, faster and more consistent configurations can shorten the proposal time, support more bids, and reduce margin erosion that can be caused by incomplete or inaccurate estimates. For engineering, capture ruled and automated outputs can reduce design work, accelerate change requests, and improve your bill of material and drawing accuracy and make it more consistent throughout the product lifecycle. So I just want to emphasize here, the important point here is not simply the CAD, right, the models. It is more reliable end-to-end processes from customer requirements to bid or to actually the product order. And here is another case study that I have listed on this slide. And again, these case studies show substantial reduction in configuration effort and cycle times by companies that have really started using these configuration software. So again, as we see on the slide, manual activities in the tendering processes for these companies on average have gone down from maybe even a week to 1 day. The average lead time to generate proposals have been reduced by 80% and so on. So again, the takeaway here is that automating those repeatable configuration work can really create measurable returns in a speed, capacity, and responsiveness for your company. Now, to understand where different tools apply, first, we need to distinguish between configure to order and engineering to order processes, which are the two common manufacturing styles that we see these days. So as far as the manufacturing slides, we have basically, I would put them into 3 different categories. You have those standard products that are as is. You don't have any customization over them, and you'll just order them. You'll get whatever those standard product is. This can be, screws, bolts, and so on. So they're really just a part number, right? They just come in at as is. But for configure to order, the valid features, options, part, and combinations have been defined and validated in advance. And when you have a configurator, the configurator selects the correct content and assembles a valid product. One example here would be a car these days, right? You go pick some options on the website, whatever different brand of car, if it's a Toyota, Tesla, or so on. You have all these different options that you can pick on the website. And you'll pick a combination and you'll get your car. Engineer to order support products that require new or modified design content for a customer request. Rules, calculations, and engineering knowledge really guide these changes. One of the examples here could be, a pump, right? If you want a pump that is fully customized with the customer requirements and so on. But in reality, Many of your businesses already use both approach depending on the product and the order. So again, as I said it at the beginning, product configuration is really a spectrum, not a binary choice. So standard products have low variability, as we talked about, and high similarity across the bill of materials that they have. Configure to order introduces more features, constraints, and part selection, while avoiding those order-specific validations, right? Blended models combine predefined choices with some engineering adaptation. And finally, at the end of the spectrum, where we have engineering to order, complexity and order-specific part creation increase for these custom products and engineering to order, and expect judgment and heuristics may be required. So again, the right solution depends on where a product family sits on this spectrum, and it's not really dependent on the industry or the part count. And that's why I said product configurator in general can really help you no matter what type of industry you are. It really depends on the product you are making these days. And Siemens as a whole provides complementary solutions across all these needs on the spectrum. So Teamcenter Product Configurator is more oriented towards those high volume CTO scenarios. RuleStream addresses really the more complex ETO environments requiring substantial engineering logic and order-specific content. And Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator really spams CTO and ETO use cases for teams directly working in the Solid Edge environment. So again, on the spectrum, there are multiple solutions that Siemens provides, and Solid Edge Design Configurator does a bit of both configure to order and engineer to order. So now that we know the industry trends and the challenges and some of the solutions, let's focus more now on the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator and give you a little bit of overview on the product. So Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator really brings you the guided rule-based automation inside Solid Edge, Designcenter Solid Edge. So with the Design Configurator, first, product variants are driven by defined inputs, parameters, and rules. Second, automation operates on the 3D CAD content to create the required configuration and related outputs. In this case, these are your CAD files, Solid Edge files, and so on. Third, rule authoring and guided configuration happen within the familiar Solid Edge environment that we all are used to, reducing the need to move between tools to learn a new tool and so on. So again, the value here comes from capturing proven engineering decision, your engineering knowledge, and applying them across a product, making that configuration much, much easier and faster. And just to quickly go over some of the challenges and how the product can help. Again, we've discussed this quite a bit already today. So again, the challenge in product configuration manufacturing, again, include responding quickly and accurately to proposal and orders, retaining your engineering knowledge, and standardizing how products are designed in your company. And these can be addressed with the configuration capabilities that are embedded in Designcenter Solid Edge, designed for straightforward deployment, and they are usable by your designers and sales engineer with appropriate process control. Now, let's go and take a look a little bit on how the product works for configuring multiple different assemblies. Again, I've compiled multiple different examples. Here, you make elevators. This could be the product for you to start configuring your models. Not only you configure the 3D CAD, you can start making drawings as a whole from your model, even translate it to a step file, JT file, and so on. And again, all you're doing here is picking the options from the place step within the design configurator, and design configurator will do the rest for us. So again, if you have a product that you configure based on your customer needs, you make all these different changes, you can go ahead and use Solid Edge Design Configurator. And again, this is different industry, right? The furniture industry, for example, this is a buffet table food cart here that we are configuring with the help of Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator. Again, in a matter of seconds, something that may take hours or days if you were doing it manually. Another example of some sort of a furniture industry is a sauna. So we are configuring the sauna. Not only we are configuring it based on our customer needs, we are also updating the drawings that already exist. Another way of using the product is to have all these pre-configured models and then bring them over to an assembly, put them on the assembly and configure it on the spot. So for example, here our assembly lacks some ladders. We've already configured these ladders with the help of the design configurator. So all we really have to do here is just come in and put on the ladders, and we can configure it in the assembly environment and let Solid Edge take care of the rest for us. Another example here is a cabinet. We want to put another cabinet on this assembly here. But again, this cabinet has been configured using the design configurator. So all we need to do is just put in the right inputs and configure it on the spot. So this is another way of using it. Use your pre-configured models in assembly environment, or build whole assembly line from scratch using the design configurator, right? Here, for example, we can quickly go ahead and make some buffet tables just with some pre-configured models that we already have right from scratch. So again, no demo magic here. All using the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator. Another example is an assembly line we can make. So again, we want to make an assembly line with our robots, with our conveyors, and so on. No problem. Just go ahead and start picking your options and build the assembly line in a matter of seconds, as opposed to hours or days for some of your designers. And again, we'll just put in the length of the conveyors, and we'll let Solid Edge Design Configurator really figure out how many conveyors it needs to put in there to fill that distance, fill that gap, and so on. So again, this is another example of how you can use the product. Or you can just build everything with one click of a button from an Excel file if needed. Just quick and easy. So again, multiple different ways to use the product. It just depends on your use cases and your needs. So now we saw some of the final outputs of what you can do with the product. Let's go ahead and jump through and see some of the user interfaces and the workflows. So the interface of the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator really organizes the configuration into clear, repeatable sequences, very easy to understand and easy to use. We have 5 stages. The 5 stages are capturing the models that are needed in the configuration process, collecting input field that establishes the choices and the values a user will provide for the configurator will pick from. We can create global rules that capture reusable engineering logics. Then we define the model actions that specifies what should happen to each model. And finally, we play and configure and make the assembly using the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator. And just to jump into the different workflow steps, the first step, of course, is selecting what models to use for the configuration process. In this step, users select the part, assemblies, and drawings that need to participate in the process. And again, these are if the drawings already exist for us to update. Of course, you can always make drawings from scratch, as we will see in a little bit. Selection tools such as Tree View, List View, Add Selected, or even Model Picker help you work efficiently with different assembly structures. And of course, the models can always be updated as the product evolves, and downstream configuration definitions can follow those changes. So if there are more parts that you need to add to the configuration process later on, you can, of course, come here and add them, or even remove if needed. So just to see this in action, again, this is our configuration product, right? Solid Edge Design Configurator. And again, it is embedded directly within Solid Edge. As we can see on the right, it is its own tab. And in the first step, we just select the models that we would need for the configuration process. Again, this can be parts, assemblies, and so on. So there are multiple ways that we can do this. One of which that we will see here is Add Selected. So we graphically select the model and then Add Selected, and we add it to the configuration process. Again, fully embedded within Solid Edge, and you don't even need to do an extra install. Once you install Solid Edge, you will already have access to the basic version of this product. Now, once you capture the models, in a step 2, we turn engineering requirements into controlled input fields. Input fields are those values that are presented in the place step during the configuration process. So depending on the need, they may capture yes or no choices. They may capture text, numbers, or any other supported selections. You as the author can make those fields clearer by defining descriptions, visibility, images, and so on. Again, well-designed inputs really translate your requirements into an easy guided experience that the users can go in the play step and they pick from. So again, step 2 is all the inputs that are presented in the play step for the people to pick from. Again, here for this elevator, we have multiple different inputs that we can choose from. Again, the platform gate, the glass, the type of glass, and so on. Again, there are so many options such as render styles for the inputs and how they show in the final step. We can add images to all the inputs to make them easier to understand. We can add values for these inputs, either individually, or we can import them either from Excel files, databases, or a text file. In this case, for the colors, we are bringing them over from Excel file. So those are all the individual inputs that we have for our colors that we allow the users to pick from. One thing we added about 2 years ago on the Design Configurator was the quick model actions. So if you're not sure what to do, you can use these to not only add the needed input, but to also add the needed model actions. And they can work for multiple different things within the Solid Edge Design Configurator. For example, we just did a quick action for one of the variables within the model. And this not only created the variable for us automatically, it also created the values and the model action. And again, so much customization. We can customize the name and so on. And here's another quick action, right? We want to add some add material model actions. So all we have to do is just go to the part and apply the materials that we know we are allowed to apply to that part. And then have Solid Edge Design Configurator quickly create that input for us, and also the model action later on that we will see in a step 4. So again, some more customization on that floor input that we have. So we'll just add a label for it to make it easier to understand. We can even add the render styles to the radio buttons. Now, we saw some pictures for the input as a whole, but also the individual values for each input can have their own pictures as well. So here for the floor material, we are going to add the different pictures that are needed for each input. Visibility rules, right? We want this input to be only visible to the users if a certain criteria is met, and that is where we use visibility rules. Selection rules, we want this input to be the default input that gets selected for the user. Based on some other criteria, we can add those selection rules as well. And all these changes automatically apply to the play steps. So for example, the visibility rules, right? You can see that I switch between the installation environments, and my floor material changes on the screen based on what I am allowing the final user to select. So we have our model selected. We have our input defined. Now we can go ahead and add any engineering logic that we want as global rules. This is a totally optional step. You don't have to define anything here if you don't need to, or if you want, you can. And there are many different rules available that can range from, straightforward engineering formulas to geometry-related or property-related calculations. And you even have access to truth tables. So just to see this in action, for the elevator, we have so many different rules available. And these are all the type of rules that you can pick from. Again, from simple expression to truth tables and so on. And within these rules, of course, you can use hundreds of different functions that come with the product with the Solid Edge Design Configurator. And again, I am using an if statement here. And for those of us that are a bit familiar with the programming language, for if statement, if something is true, I get a outcome. And if it's not true, I get a different outcome. And again, I am using that if statement in combination with a function inside Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator to come in with my outcome. And again, I can take this rule and take it downstream and apply it to different parts, to different model actions, and so on. Now, in a step 4, we define the concrete changes that need to be performed on any of the models that we capture in a step 1. So again, the model actions really, in this case, connect the configuration logic to the CAD behavior. So depending on the design, the action can be replacing a model with a new model, saving or renaming a certain model, applying a material, applying a color, changing the variable of the model, changing the properties, creating quick sheet drawings, or performing other supported operations. And we have dozens of model actions available for you. Conditions can be set to when these model actions are run, or they can also be suppressed at any time. So let's see this in action. Again, all the models that we picked in a step 1 will show up in a step 4. And here we have 4 different categories of model actions. Within each category, we have quite a bit of model actions for you to use. Set face style is one of those. We are setting the color of the model based on something that the users pick. We have workflow model actions. So we have groups. So the point of group is if a condition is met, we can put multiple different model actions within that group. So they only get executed if the condition for that group is met. So for example, we are just making sure this group is running when a certain file with a certain file name does not exist. And then we are putting different model actions inside that group. So they only will be executed if that group condition is true, one of which is setting a variable. We can rename the part to a name that we would like it to be. These names can also be formulas and so on. So it's really up to you. You have a lot of control on how you would do a lot of these model actions. And finally, when our group is done, we'll just put a group end. So that is it. We have model and model actions, one of which is a remove model action. So a lot of our customers want to hide and show parts based on a configuration in their assembly. They want to suppress model actions, and all of these are done through the remove model action. If you want to bring a new part in, you can use the place part model actions, where you can define a new part and bring it in based on coordinate systems. So if your initial assembly doesn't have the model, you can go ahead and use the place part to bring that model based on the requirement if needed. And again, this is done based on the matching of the coordinate system. So all we have to do is define the coordinate system in our target assembly and in our part, and let Design Configurator do the rest for us. For drawings, we have draft updates. So if you already have a draft that you have for the model and you want to update it based on the changes, you can do that, or you can use the quick sheet model action to make a new drawing for that model. And again, here we can retrieve all the dimensions and so on as well in this model action. Again, we can also add exports. So if you want to save a different file as a different file format, again, I use the quick action, and here we can see that we already automatically created the model actions with those quick actions. And once everything is done, again, we go configure our model and we get a new elevator, as we saw at the beginning of the presentation. So we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, right? But I just wanted to put it on a slide to put some more emphasis on it. We can configure models individually, right? For example, the elevator or the conveyor. But another way of using the Design Configurator, the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator, is to bring those pre-configured models into your assemblies and configure them on the spot. We saw this with the case of the ladders, for example. So I just wanted to make sure that there are multiple different ways to use this program. It's not only to configure individual models. This is another way of using it as well. So just to give you a summary, and then I'll give you a little bit of licensing information on how you can get access to this, and also we'll go on with the Q&A. So in summary, again, Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator can increase your productivity, responsiveness, and time to market through the guided process that we just talked about. Again, this provides a step-by-step guided workflow with a comprehensive set of tools for capturing design intent without requiring users to build a custom application from scratch. So again, it's very useful, and I think we can all benefit from this application. As far as the licensing goes, not only you can buy this as its own add-on, if you have access to value-based licensing, Solid Edge Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator is now included with the value-based licensing. So Designcenter X value-based licensing, it consumes 10 tokens. But if you have that, you can go ahead and get access to the standard version of this product. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all the flavors of Designcenter X Solid Edge will have access to the basic version, which is a limited version with very few model actions and so on. So you can get us started with that right now if you wanted to. But to get the standard version, you can use the VBL with 10 tokens to get access to that. With that being said, that's the end of this presentation for me. I can take some questions if you have them in the chat, Taryn. If not, I'll just hand it back over to you.
The link to the Designcenter Solid Edge community. So if you joined us late, I did have this at the beginning. You definitely want to go there. You can click on it right now and bookmark that if you haven't already. And so this is where we will post the recording on Friday. We try to pin the most recent recording there at the top of the page. You can also follow this topic. And if you do that, when you log into the community, you'll see on your homepage any posts that are recent that have to do with Solid Edge. So we also recommend that you follow so that that will be at the top of your community experience when you go to the page. Again, live link, you can click there to visit the G2 webpage. You also could do this on mobile with the QR code. And ultimately they were like, hey, we have, gift cards reserved for people who put, high quality reviews. So, put a little detail in there. And going through that link will make it so that they can track that you've put a review there that helps the team find it. So that is it for my announcements. This is Ali's contact information again, the survey, QR code and link, and then also to the forums. So I'll give you a moment now to address a couple of questions in the chat.
We have some questions as far as how you would do it for sheet metal files. I think Adam is asking, one of their customers generated a lot of sheet metal files. So one thing with the Design Configurator as of right now is it only works in the assembly environment, but I would say stay tuned for the 2027 release, and I may have a lot of good information there, something that you would like there. And I think we had another question about some information about Solid Edge Design Configurator Connect as well. I would respond with the exact same thing. I think you will hear some good information on that with the upcoming release as well. I think one question came in is, how do you handle drawings for each configured models? So there are two types of things we can do with the drawings inside the Designcenter Solid Edge Design Configurator. One is if you have the drawings already, you can update those. But if you don't have the drawings for the configured models, you can use the quick sheet model actions. Well, you will define a quick sheet template, and then we will go ahead and generate that drawing for you. I think at some point in the future, it would make sense to extend that to our AI drawing capability as well inside Designcenter Solid Edge, to have that capability come inside Design Configurator as well. But as of right now, that is the way we handle drawings. So I think those were all the questions in the chat.
Yeah, that's great. We've still got a few minutes left, so I'll give a little countdown if someone wants to raise a hand as well. And then otherwise, I too am excited for the next release. The product team definitely tries to, listen to this feedback and anticipate what customers need next. So that's always a good one. If this is an easy question and I don't have enough context to know about the configured model being quickly created as separate items. So
I think the question is, in context of managed environment and context of Teamcenter, the challenge is that we have is saving out those configured models. So one thing I can tell you right now is we don't really have a Teamcenter integration for the product. That is something that, of course, I have the product manager here as well. So if there is a lot of feedback for that, that is definitely something we can consider in the future for the product in the roadmap. So again, once you configure the model, it's just you would have to push it inside Teamcenter from Solid Edge. So again, there's some manual work there if you wanted to do that, because there's no there's no direct integration with Teamcenter as of right now. But that is something that we are definitely exploring, listening to the feedback. This is a good question. This is something we can take back as well and take a look at.
Yeah, thanks.
And I think one more question come in. Is it possible to do it for module plant design? I'm not entirely sure what is the use case here. Maybe that is something that we can discuss offline. So David, if you wanted to send us an email with a bit of your use case on what you're trying to achieve here, maybe we can take a look at it and figure out an answer for you.
Well, yeah, Ali's email address is there on the screen. You can grab it. And definitely, if you think of other questions, we do have the forums, right? Because this is only once a month. Definitely go to the forums and ask those questions as well. So I'm seeing some things, right? The use case, folks internally are curious about your use case, David. So definitely give Ali that email. And anybody else, you think of something, you can post it in the forums just in general. You can look for this particular video if you want to attach it and then post in the comments underneath this video once that is in the forums on Friday. But if there's nothing else, I guess we can all take 10 minutes back and we will see you in the forums. All right, guys. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.